The first meeting is really a get-to-know-you meeting. We're going to sit down. Typically, the meeting will last about an hour. We're having a conversation. My job is to ask them some questions about where they are, what some of their goals are, what some of the key objectives they have in meeting with me, where they are to this point, and really what brought them in to see me. And now I'm at the point in my career where I have a lot of people that are dependent upon me to provide them with all the guidance and all the advice that we do on a day-to-day basis.
You spend your working years trying to build up your assets, trying to build up pension credits at your job, trying to grow your nest egg so that you can one day retire when you can't work or don't want to work anymore. And that's a period followed by phase two, which is retirement. And your priorities in these two phases are very different, but many times we see people don't make that shift and they still act like they're in phase one when they really should be acting like they're in phase two.
We're going to talk to you about what we commonly refer to as the second half of the game. And what I mean by that is you're working your entire life towards retirement, and I'm assuming that most of you are, at that age where you're starting to consider some of your options as you move into retirement. And as you do that, you're moving from what we call the accumulation phase of your life, where you're accumulating your assets. Maybe you're participating in your company's 401k, maybe you're contributing to an IRA account or a Roth IRA account or some type of retirement vehicle. And now, as you retire, you're transitioning into the distribution phase, or the part where you're going to need income in retirement. So we're going to talk about some different ways to do that with an emphasis on Social Security.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Financially Speaking with Jeff Bush. My name is Steve Jablonski, and I'll be the host of today's telecast. Today's topic is age power.
Well, Steve, you may wonder why a financial show like this would tackle the complex topic of aging. And the answer is simple. As a society, we're living longer, which brings on a whole new set of issues to deal with, many of which are financial.
And Jeff, let's talk about the baby boomers. A baby boomer is defined as someone that was born between 1946 and 1964. Many now are moving into retirement, and they're using government entitlement programs such as Social Security and Medicare. So let's talk about the baby boomers.
Well, Steve, there's about 10,000 baby boomers retiring every day. So this is putting an enormous drain on the system. The boomers are collecting Social Security, they're collecting Medicare as well, and furthermore, they're expected to live another 20 plus years in retirement. It puts a tremendous drain on the system.
And also, as you said, there's many people living well into their 90s. What does this do for long-term care?
Well, if you look at it just from a long-term care aspect, it's a great question, because there's really a flip side to living longer, and that is as people age into their 90s, we're seeing greater demand for long-term care, greater demand for, I should say, a greater risk for dementia, and just long-term care in general, just not being able to perform, activities of daily living. It really just puts a lot more risk once you're into your 90s, and those risks are increased tremendously. And these long-term care facilities they're not being built fast enough. It's as baby boomers age. And right now, baby boomers are getting into the older baby boomers are into their 70s now, and as they get into their 90s, there's going to be tremendous demand on long-term care facilities, and we're just not ready.
And how about the issue of long-term care in insurance? How has that changed from, say, 20 years ago to today?
Well, from an insurance standpoint, 20, I guess the simple answer to your question is that the long-term care insurance industry got themselves into a bit of a quandary because they didn't know how to price their product. And of course, our colleague Barry, he's really the expert on long-term care. He wrote helped write a book on the subject and everything. But when you talk about long-term care insurance, it's a relatively new industry, and as such, they really didn't know how to price it. And it's tricky because it's not like life insurance when with certainty that you're going to die. It's just a matter of when. So they have mortality tables, and they can predict it pretty good. Although I'm going to get into that a little bit later in today's show. But with long-term care, it was hard to predict how long people were going to live, how long people were going to, or what kind of demand there was going to be on long-term care services. And most companies just underpriced their product. And now people that are holding these policies are experiencing really large rate increases,
Okay. And I guess a deeper question, Jeff, is can our political system restrain the demands of tens of millions of elder boomers that they place on social and also economic infrastructure?
Well, in many ways, we're woefully unprepared. More of us are going to live longer than any previous generation. I say us, Steve, because you and I are part of the baby boomers. But the epicenter of economic and political power is going to shift from the young to the old. Mm-hmm. Because not only do we have the aging of the baby boomers, we have another phenomenon, and that is that there's not as many babies being born. Yep. So the birth rates are going down. Yep. We look at millennials and such; they're not having babies at the rates that their parents were. So that creates another set of problems. But we need to really change our mindset about how to spend our extra years of life. Mm-hmm. People are living longer, so what's the quality of that life going to be, and how we behave as elders will become the most important challenge of our lives.
And I guess from a Social Security standpoint, if you think about it, back in 1935, when it all started, Social Security benefits, or at age 65, you weren't going to live that long. In fact, back in 1940, the estimated life expectancy was 60 for a male and about 65 for a female.
Yep.
So today we're living in the
Yep.
90s.
Yep. You hit the nail right on the head, Steve. You're right. In 1935, this thing all got started with Social Security in 1935, and then Medicare came along in 1965. But you're right. The average American was like you said, right into 60, 65, and when you think about it, if people were retiring traditionally at age 65, there weren't that many people. You weren't going to live that long if you made it to 65. And then to further complicate this problem is back then there was 40 workers for every one recipient of a Social Security benefit. So 40 to 1. Today, the life expectancy is more like 76. Yep. It's a big difference. Going from 63, let's say, on average, to 76. So that's a 13-year increase in mortality. And now there's 3.3 workers for every recipient. Again, to my point is there's less people being born. So it's really putting a tremendous drain on our system. So to our political brethren in Washington, they have a tremendous task at hand because the math the math just doesn't add up.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure this stuff out. I mean, it's a numbers game, and they're paying out more benefits than they're collecting in revenue. So, in revenue would be meaning taxes, and this is a recipe for disaster, and at least increases in the tax bill, and nobody wants to increase taxes. Yep. Nobody wants to hear about increasing the tax bill.
Yep.
In fact, politicians make their whole platform is they're going to reduce taxes. When in fact, we got a problem.
Yep.
We got a problem. We're really building a house of cards, and it's only going to get worse.
Okay. And just to clarify, so when you get your Social Security statement, or used to get them, so you're not paying in for your own?
No. It used to be the whole concept, conceptually, it used to be, when you were paying into Social Security, theoretically, you were putting away dollars for when you were available. That concept, that ship sailed a long time ago. So what's happening now is current payers into the system are benefiting the people that are collecting from the system. So in essence, what we're doing is we're kicking the can down the road. Yeah, it would be nice if it was as simple as it was like a kind of a forced savings where you were putting money into some kind of an account that was just there and growing for you, and was there for you when you retired. But that's just not the way it works.
Okay.
Yeah, there's just, the government is just, we got problems, and I guess that's probably a topic for another day. It's just the whole solvency behind Social Security, and the fact that we've built this system where you work, you pay into it, and then you retire and you get money out of it. But the world has changed. As we sit here today in 2017, the world is different than when this whole idea was concepted under the New Deal under President Franklin Delano Roosevelt back in 1935, when the retirement age was 65. Well, now, people are healthier and people are living longer, so that right there, and of course they changed that. It's now 66, and it's going to change to 67 if you were born in 1960. So the people, the tail end of the baby boomers and the new people, the Generation X and the millennials and all them, the retirement age is 67. But we could even debate whether that's a good age, because there's just not enough dollars in the system to make Social Security solvent.
Okay. Now let's shift a little bit, Jeff. How about the insurance companies, and how are they tackling the shift in mortality with the aging America?
Well, Steve, it depends on which side of the table you're sitting on. And insurance companies, they're in the business to manage risk. But if you're holding a bunch of life insurance policies, waiting to pay out a death benefit, you're in a pretty good position right now, because the life expectancy has changed dramatically. So when these life insurance created these tables years and years ago, it was based on what current assumptions were, and now people are living longer. So as a whole, that means that the insurance company is holding your money longer, your premiums longer, and they're paying out less in the way of claims. So that's really working in their favor. Now, and then just one other aspect of that, when it comes to term insurance, term insurance doesn't carry, it's not permanent, it doesn't carry any cash value, and there's very, very few claims that are paid out on term insurance. I saw this statistic a while back, and I don't remember it, but it's a very, very small number. I mean, it's like less than 2% is paid out in death benefits on term life insurance. So that's a good deal for the insurance company. Now, when you look at the other side of that, that would be the annuity. So the annuity is when the insurance company is paying the consumer. So if you have, and if you're holding an annuity and the insurance company is obligated to pay you, say for the rest of your life, it's a guarantee, maybe the rest of your life and the rest of your spouse's life, well then they're paying you, if you're living longer, well, that means they have to pay you longer. So that's the flip side of not having to pay the death benefit. So if you look at it from a risk standpoint, if you have an insurance company that has a balance of both, the life insurance products and the annuity products, then they've got a balanced portfolio.
Okay. So as a consumer, you should buy an annuity then, from what you're saying?
Basically, yes.
Okay.
Because when you think about it, Social Security really is an annuity. So is a pension. But you asked, because you asked me before about paying into your Social Security, and is that really the money you're getting out when you retire? What you're really doing is you're subsidizing an annuity contract, because the government has an obligation to pay you. They have an obligation to pay you for the rest of your life and the rest of your spouse's life, and there's family benefits in there. It's complicated, yep. But it's an annuity. So is the pension. If you work for a company and the company gave you a defined benefit in the form of a pension, they're backing up that guarantee with an annuity. So we're seeing less and less of that. The pensions are really going away. The pensions of a generation ago are gone. By the wayside. Corporations are doing away with pensions, left and right. So what that means is you have to go out and buy your own. Yep. You have to go out and simulate your own pension. Well, how do you do that? You go out, you buy an annuity. And there's tons of these things in the marketplace. There's tons of annuities. And we can sit down and talk with anybody who wants to, and we can put our information up on the screen on how to reach us. But the fact of the matter is that yeah, you should buy an annuity, because the annuity is you're shifting longevity risk to the insurance company, because now the insurance company, in one way, shape, or form, depending on what kind of annuity you buy, the insurance company has an obligation to pay you, because there's guarantees in there for life. You can get all kinds of bells and whistles on these annuity products, but basically they're paying you for life. They're giving you a lifetime guarantee. Yep. So one of the biggest fears that people have when they retire is running out of money. You ask the question, what's your biggest concern in retirement? Yep. Running out of money. Yep. Well, if you buy an annuity, you have just shifted the risk on that portion of your retirement asset to the insurance company, because now the insurance company, they have to manage that. They have to worry about you. They have to manage their portfolio so that they can pay you. But that's not your problem. Yep. That's their problem, because they've got to pay you now for life. And
today, what are some other issues that clients are facing with this age wave phenomenon?
Well, really, I mean, Steve, honestly, for baby boomers, we're the sandwich generation, okay? We see people in their 50s and their 60s. They're caring for their parents who are in their 80s and their 90s. Then on top of that, they're still raising their own children, okay? They may be in college. They may have graduated from college, and they're back in the house because they're trying to get their careers off the ground. And it may take several years for that to happen. So, and then on top of that, they're working. So they have a job, they're taking care of aging parents, and they're taking care of their children. I read one statistic where it's expected now that you're going to spend more time in years taking care of aging parents than you are in raising your own children, which is kind of a scary thing when you think about it, because you don't expect to do that with your parents, but that's really what's happening as people are living longer. And this situation is only going to get worse as the baby boomers age. This phenomenon is only going to get worse, because as a society, as a government, as individuals, we're all very ill prepared to handle this aging phenomenon.
And when we look at your practice, what are you doing to tackle these issues head on?
Well, that's a very good question. It's a lot of it is what we just talked about, insurance and annuities. One thing with insurance, with like long-term care insurance, you asked me about that earlier. With long-term care insurance, what we have done is there's products out there now that couple the long-term care insurance with the life insurance. So if you put a long-term care access rider on top of an insurance policy, then that's a really good product for the consumer, because you know you're going to die eventually, but what you don't know is what your need for long-term care is going to be.
Yep.
So if you're in need of long-term care, then you can access on a premature basis the death benefit in a life insurance policy to help pay for long-term care. So we're really big believers in that. The annuities are just tremendous planning tools. The way I like to look at an annuity is you're really creating another asset class. You think traditionally of an asset class as a stock or a bond, maybe cash, maybe real estate. Well, I like to think of an annuity as another asset class, and that is an asset class that's providing guaranteed income, because that's really important. Because we talk to a lot of people that either they don't have a pension at all, or maybe they have a small one, but they don't have that guarantee of income. So they got a Social Security benefit, and that might take care of part of their income needs, maybe like a third. I guess statistically, people get about a third of their income from Social Security. Well, where's the other 2/3 going to come from? It's going to come from a pension, which may or may not be there, or it's going to come from your savings. So you really have to transform your savings into annuities. So that's a lot of what we do in our practice. But in addition to that, it's a big picture kind of a thing. We have to look at, we've got to make these assets last for a lifetime. And if we're talking to somebody in their 60s, let's say, early 60s, and our practice really varies. So, but we're pretty much in the pre-retirement to retirement market. So, you're looking at somebody with 20 to 30 years of retirement.
Yep. And I've often heard you refer to your planning for people as the second half of the game. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's the second half of the game is played differently than the first half of the game. So if you're winning the game, okay, so and the way I define winning the game, you come in to me, and by the way, we've got some events coming up, which we'll put up here on the screen. But we're going to be at Chadwick's down in Audubon a couple times over the next couple weeks. So if you want to call our office for tickets, we'd love to see you there. We talk about all this stuff when we're at our live events. But anyway, the second half of the game is if you're winning, so you've come in, you've got adequate, you've done all the right things. You've saved, you've invested, you've got a good Social Security check, you've won the game. So now it's the second half. What do you want to do? You don't want to take unnecessary risk, okay? You don't want to throw you don't want to throw that high risk pass when it's when it calls for a a straight ahead run where you want to protect the ball. You want to be much more conservative in the way that you play the game, so to speak. And the second, so we call that the second half of the game. And you manage your assets differently, you manage your income differently. Everything changes. And one of the mistakes that we see with people in retirement is they play the second half the way they played the first half, and that is that they don't really change anything. They don't change their portfolio, they don't change their risk. And I know one of the things that you do, Steve, a lot is you do a lot of our risk analysis, and that's really important because what we find in many cases that the risk portfolio isn't really consistent with what the risk objectives are. And what I mean by that is what the person thinks they are in terms of risk is very different than the way their actual portfolio is set up. So there's a lot of adjustments that need to be made in the second half of the game.
Okay. And just where are the locations of our offices?
Well, we're right here in Pottstown,
okay,
believe it or not, on 152 East High Street. The big brick house building, anybody familiar with Pottstown knows, it's the corner of High and Hanover. The Brick House Tavern's down there on the first floor. We're all the way up on the fourth floor. And then, of course, our main office is in Trooper on the Boulevard of the Generals. So we've got two good locations to serve our clients. We've been doing this for a long, long time. I've been in the business for 22 years, as you have, Steve, also. So we've been doing this for a long time. So we've got a couple good offices to make this thing work.
Okay. Well, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap. So yeah. So anyway, it was great to talk today about the aging of America, and I think what we're going to do the next time is we're going to expand on. I think we need to expand on the topic of annuities because the annuities are really a nice vehicle for all the planning and retirement. But until then, this is Financially Speaking with Jeff Bush.